Hey everyone, welcome to our latest masterclass. That's going to be hosted by Harry Monkhouse. The the reason why Harry is here is that he not only is a really good leader, but he also posted this really interesting article on LinkedIn about a month ago now about how he's measuring the performance of his team. And as this community is all about giving you more skills and more tricks and tips for you to improve the leadership of your and performance of your team, I was like, we have to get this guy on because it was really interesting. I'm not just saying it because you're here, Harry. It was really good. Um,
You are.
yeah, okay, okay, pay me later. Um, so we wanted to have him onto the into the community as well to share with you the kind of the way that he looks at performance of his team. We're going to have about 20 minutes of Harry showing this, but then also we're going to leave some time. So if you've got questions about your own team and your performances and your stats, we'll be able to do some live walkthroughs of the kind of process flow that Harry uses to give you some tips for your team. I'm going to turn over to Harry in a moment. Before we begin, I'm going to put in the chat our State of EMEA Sales Development Survey. We have a week until submissions are closed. The State of EMEA Sales Development Survey is the only survey for sales development leaders to give you insights into salaries, what tech stacks look like, what your salary should be, looking about quotas, about attainment. It's a really good guide that we did last year that really helped leaders show their e-staff and their exec and their senior leaders about what sales development is looking like in Europe. And we're doing it again this year. So I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. Without further ado, Harry, over to you.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to meet you all. Some of you I can see your faces, some others. But my name's Harry Monkhouse. I head up the business development function here at LastPass, managing a team across APAC, North America, and EMEA. And I should probably start with before jumping into the scorecard, of where this kind of came from. Um, Of course, you can do your standard reporting within Salesforce or Outreach or whatever the technology that you're using. And one of the things that I was struggling with was to create one gamification, but also get a true sense of where my team is winning during the week and where they're not, looking at the kind of the key metrics that I care about. And while a lot of this data I can pull into probably some form of Salesforce dashboard, which I do have, what I was noticing is either some discrepancies within the data across multiple different platforms, but also some of the scoring wasn't necessarily clear on like what are the key things that I need to be looking at. And then that has kind of fed into how I look at these on a week by week basis. And then I can start to see the trends or patterns of each individual by rolling that up into either a monthly scorecard or a quarterly scorecard. So I think the premise of what I'm going to go through now is basically the weekly scorecard that I posted about a month ago. And then I can show you a kind of insight into how I roll that up into a quarterly basis as well. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll either answer them towards the end or as I'm going through. So let's start off with the hard thing, which is sharing the correct screen. Can you all see that? Okay, perfect. Brilliant. So this is what I will just caveat this with, this is fake data. It's not real data of my current employees before I get in any trouble. But essentially what I've done here is I've just given some kind of key scenarios of different reps and what I'm looking at. So just to call a spade, let's just run through what I'm kind of caring about. So first of all, I look at the accounts that are being touched. The reason I do this is because I believe there's a sweet spot as part of the multi-threadingness as part of this. So if I, depending on the different type of segment size that I'm targeting, whether it's SMB, mid-market, or even enterprise, there's probably a certain amount of personas that I'll need a rep to go and touch. So I will do the calculations back of what that number will look like, but that's one thing that I care about. The email volume and the call volume is the other two. Now, people have definitely given me feedback on um, inputting LinkedIn as part of a metric within here. But if I look at like outreach, the way that they do LinkedIn task completion, I don't know if you've ever gone through it yourself. It's the easiest thing to say that you've completed the task. It's not actually pulling real data from LinkedIn to show your conversion rates or success. Normally on a rep hitting a button, and I don't have a tool that gives me the full LinkedIn deep dive into conversion rates. Once we get into the core metrics, of course, it's about volume, connect rate, and then I break it down into meaning and negative conversations. So negative conversations are, for me, wrong contact, but didn't get a referral, not interested, using a competitor, not a priority or due to timing. So there's a different combination of different things that I'm caring about. Now, the reason I am tracking the negative conversations is because where I try and look for particular patterns within the negative conversation in the conversations. So if I am seeing a rep that is maybe getting a lot of not interested, that's a particular coaching moment for me, because where are we falling out as part of that no interest? Is it early on in the call? Is it late stage? That's something that we can dig into the data. A lot easier to do within North American and Australian teams, because I can pull record. EMEA makes it a little bit more challenging depending on how risk averse your legal team are. And then from that, meaningful conversations. Now, a meaningful conversation for me is a meeting booked, a positive conversation, which could be like we get a pain, maybe we get a timeline, maybe we get a priority. And then also a referral. And a referral for us has to be, hey, can I use your name in the email? Can I say we've already had a conversation? So different to wrong contact, because they might say, I'm not the right person, go and figure it out yourself. A referral is giving you a name and happy to give you that introduction. And then that works out into how many meetings did we book over the phone? And then it's our past opportunities. So they're the opportunities that we've booked during the week. Now, they might not always, as you can see here, correlate from like, we might not have booked 100% over the phone. In this case, this person has booked 4 past opportunities. I'm going to suggest that the other 3 were from email. Very easy for me to dig in, but I can use that quick maths. This is different to the scorecard that we had, because I've updated it and added a past pipeline. And the reason this is important is because I'm starting to track the delta of what a BDR thinks the opportunity is versus what the AE after their discovery call thinks what the opportunity is. Because a lot of the time, that could be a coaching moment on, are we doing the right qualification? Have we asked the right questions? Are we guessing? Are we even filling out that data? So there's a lot of moments in there that I can capture very quickly from that past pipeline. And then it's accepted pipeline. That means the AE has accepted it into their funnel, and then the accepted pipeline is the dollar value associated to that past accepted. So again, we can track that delta. And then pre-qual, I don't know if this is a very common term, but it's basically the pre-qualification. So this is how I look at forecasting. So when I get to normally the last 2 weeks, this will be something that I'm highlighting to my leadership team of, hey, we've got 48 pre-qual opportunities that are sitting there. And we've got X amount of those, and maybe it's like 80% of those we're hoping that can convert into a accepted pipeline. The final thing as part of this is the PTO. The PTO just basically feeds into the color coding system, which I'll just talk into in a second. But if they've been there 4 days, then of course their KPIs are going to be lower. Now that's everything that I'm tracking. What we can then do is, as part of this, we talk about what we call an IBDR, which is an ideal BDR. So what do we think a best-in-class BDR should be looking like? And again, this is on you to set as part of this, but we think about 60 to 100 accounts touched. This, because that means is if they're doing 300 calls and we divide that by 5 people that we would target per account, that would mean that we are targeting 60 unique accounts potentially as part of that. Same as if we were targeting 3 personas, at each account, that would be 100. So we're trying to, my sweet spot at the moment for the reps is that 3 to 5 people. Again, we're more focused on that 5 to 2,000 people line size. So again, if you're, if you're in the enterprise space and maybe you're like 5,000 plus, your personas that you're, or multi-threadedness percentage might need to be higher per account. You might be more looking at a 9. So then your numbers would be maybe down in the 30 to 45 range. I try my goal, not that we're adhering by this probably at the moment. My KPIs currently for the team are 200 emails and 250 calls. I still think that they should be more in the 300 mark to get reverse engineering to our target. We then look at, so that would be 60 calls and 60 emails a day. And then we look at a 10% answer rate, which is probably a best in class. But within EMEA, I currently see a range of 6.9% to 11.2% across 5 different reps. And then we look at meaningful conversation. Now, I think it probably sits more in the 33% mark, but I think a best in class rep could have 50% turn into meaningful conversations, and then maybe 1 in 5 turn into a meeting booked. Now, again, some of my best SDRs here are more in the 33%, 40% range of turning into meetings booked as well.
What is
Harry,
it? CR?
Conversion rate.
so Harry, there was another question as well from Julia about, do you have different KPIs for different segments?
If I had different segments, then yes, I would had different KPIs. But in the current role that I manage, no, I don't have different segments. So everyone has a same KPI. I do manage 2 different business units. And the MSP business unit that I manage, they probably only need to do probably 2 to 3 personas. So their KPIs would actually be higher because they can get through accounts a lot quicker, and a lot more is fed to them from a lead perspective, because we have a lot more event MQLs that come through. But yes, I do think there's my role is like, if you're missing target, you tend to need to do more activity. But if we think about it, if we're not doing enough calls, then we're probably not having enough conversations. If we're not having enough conversations, no chance we're going to have enough meaningful conversations to even convert. And I'll walk through the different reps of some of the moments that I am trying to review as part of that. And then the only other thing that I'll just talk on the color coding system. So again, this is more my system at the moment. So green would be 200 plus emails, and green for calls would be 200 plus emails. Of course, if they take a day off, which is what I've tried to show with rep 3, then their KPIs come down by a day. They don't need to now cram 5 days into 4 days. They work to 4-day work week. So there's an expectation of a daily routine as part of that.
I've got more. There's a load more questions.
Yeah, I can see the questions coming through. So the first, I can see about manually adding into the table. So currently today, this is very much a manual process for me. This is one of the things that I definitely want to improve going into next year. The reason that it is manual at the moment is because I cross-check a lot of the data and I go a lot deeper when I'm doing the analysis. This takes me no more. I have 11 reps currently. It takes me no more than 40 minutes to fill out this comprehensively and dig into a little bit more of the detail. This data here, if I highlight this in maybe a yellow, is all outreach. And all of this data here is all Salesforce. Maybe that's the wrong color to pick as a. So hopefully it shows you. Outreach is, I can just get more granular because even in the recorded countries, I can go into the particular topics more so. But also what we find is I have a challenge around no disposition because we get a lot of callbacks and then we call them back and it becomes manual tasks that maybe don't get logged to a number, but not to the contact. And that's probably a workflow issue on my part. But I find I could have discrepancy of about 5 to 10% difference in between some of my data sources. And for me, judging a rep when I've got 10% less data on their performance can be sometimes a little bit challenging for me back up using wrong data. So that's why I take the effort to do manual, but I'm in the process of making this a lot more automated. Was there other, I'm just reading through the questions, but David, maybe you want to ask the ones while we're here.
Yeah, sure. So there's one from Josh about, is it the same KPIs for each region?
So yes, at the moment, I'm going through probably quite a big change of driving, being a very much a new business focused. We've done the inbound outbound team, we've then done the all-bound team, then we've done current customer, new business. Now it's thinking about maybe all new business. There's a combination of multiple different things that I am thinking about. To Josh's question, do I think they should all be the same? The answer is no. I find in APAC, I've got reps that can go from a 22% pickup rate to an 8%. I've got reps in EMEA that probably are from a 6.9% to 11.2%. And then I've got North American reps that go from like 2.5% up to 6.7%. So we know in North America, we need to make more calls to have the same amount of conversations. So in my head, yes, we should have a higher KPI, but I've also got a very, very new team. So that will probably become as an evolution of that. But currently today, they're all across the board. We're trying to create same targets, same principles, same methodology, same process. And then, yes, the plan is that eventually we'll start to regionalize those because we know that not every theatre is created equally.
Great. Do you want to keep going for a little bit longer, Harry? Then
of course. So the final things that I'll just touch on here. So I think about the color system. So we know that we probably need 20% more past opportunities to past accepted. We get paid on past accepted. So we know that we're probably going to convert maybe 80-90% of those. Of course, I'd love it if we were 100% conversion rate, but we just know that that's very unlikely, probably in a BDR team. So we know that we need to fill more of the funnel. So 25% and then 22% we look at of what they need to achieve on a weekly basis, depending on what their target is. So as part of this, yes, I've now color coded it. This is what I would be looking at as a week. I don't color code the accounts touch because for us, it's actually dependent on some of the regions, but I could do. One of the things that I was just trying to highlight from some of the coaching moments, if I look at rep 1, yes, great amount of activity, probably a little bit lower on email than I wanted. Maybe they did a power hour. That would be something that immediately I'd be digging into. But they had a lot of negative conversations. Actually, the percentage of negative conversations to answer is almost 50%. So one of the things immediately I'd be going into, maybe even into a one-to-one or straight into the data that I have in front of me. Okay, what were those negative conversations? Okay, 15 of those were wrong contact. Why were they wrong contact? Was it because they were the wrong persona? Because actually we've just been targeting the wrong people? Or were they the wrong people because we had maybe some bad information, legacy data, or was it like acquired from one of our data platforms? So that would be something immediately I'd want to dig into as a learning moment. The rest, not too bad. Yes, we could have done more emails. The conversion actually from meaningful conversation to meeting booked is that 20% mark, which is what I'm kind of adhering to. We just didn't have enough meaningful conversations. So I've got here 25 that are classed as negative and positive. What were the others? I'm going to assume that they were all callbacks. So that's something, what is our callback strategy for that week? Because that's a lot of callbacks. And did we follow up in the correct way? So that's rep 1 that I'm looking at and going, hey, here are the learning moments. Rep 2 is a little bit more where I've got looks very single threaded, not enough activity, but actually had a good amount of meaningful conversations, but didn't convert. So again, I've highlighted in, hopefully the boxes are clear, but I've highlighted probably 3 key moments that I could dig into. And also past 2 opportunities, but didn't get a pipeline number. Immediately, that's a red flag in Salesforce that they didn't put the correct ARR into the deal. So that's something that I can launch into. And then rep 3, there's probably very few training moments. But what I would like to do is I would like to look at how do we get those 5 meetings and how do we get those meaningful conversations to look at positive trends that maybe I could then say, hey, we actually did really well in retail this week. Why is that? And then dig into that. And that might be something that I then take forward with the team when saying, hey, you might want to focus on that this week. And then it's this similar for rep 4, hit everything, just really low meaningful conversations, but really, really high conversion. So how do we convert? How do we get more pickups? Are we calling the right people in the first place? We might be doing too much office lines and not enough mobile data. So that's how I think about essentially my scorecard.
Great. You've got loads more questions that have come through. So maybe let's stick on that one around meaningful conversations. What's your definition of a meaningful conversation?
Yeah, so for me, I probably need to come up with some clever analogy. I think someone was telling me about like the 5 Ps and stuff like that. But realistically, it's we differentiate referral because referrals we have a slightly different play for. So normally I do class that as a meaningful conversation. Booking the meeting itself is still a meaningful conversation because had an outcome, but we look at meaningful conversation to meeting booked as that conversion rate percentage. But it could be you find a pain, a problem, a person, or a point in time that you're wanting to then reconnect. So a lot of the time, I think a lot of our meaningful conversation is like, hey, this is something we're potentially thinking about, but it's Q1 next year.
Great.
Okay, yeah, I'll stop there.
No, it's good. That's good. Another question came in about you've not mentioned much, not mentioned here more details about emails. Do you have any criterias around that in terms of open rate, reply rate?
I'll quickly just jump into this. So, which hopefully should answer that question nicely. All of my scorecards then feed into a quarterly scorecard. So where we look at like the accounts touch breaks up into the customer and new business space. We look at the multi-threaded percentageness. To the point around email, we then go into email and we look at email open rate, replies, which is record count, meetings booked from that, and then we look at percentage reply rate. I've just done my Q3 reviews with all of my team. We then go into their top performance sequences. We look at their top objections that they receive, how they deal with those, their follow-up strategy. So I would say you're almost doing like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes here, and then 15 minutes at the start to feel like what they're getting out of their quarter, or what are the things that we need to make sure that we are improving on. So I don't do it on a weekly basis, but I do look at that data myself, and there might be a couple of coaching moments within a one-to-one, but I look at it from an overall monthly, quarterly basis with the reps in a lot more detail. But I want them to be coming and being like, hey, I got this email where I got this objection. Hey, I didn't know how to reply, or my reply took way too long. That's what I'm expecting of them to be driving in their one-to-ones, is coming with those problems rather than me having to look through data to figure out what their problems are. Hopefully, David, that answers the question.
I think so. Don't see anybody else see any other clarifications there. Jake said, off topic, email mentioned a few times. Is it just outreach you're sending emails from, open rates / reply rates? Feel like outreach email just isn't landing in inbox.
Yes. Yeah, we use outreach. We just use outreach. I do think there's probably, again, I don't want this to now open up my inbox to people saying I'm in market, but I am potentially looking at an email domain rotator to see if we can deliver more. But I was genuinely shocked at how good some of our performance metrics were coming out of Q3. We had in all regions, our lowest open rate was 40%, and our lowest reply rate was 12%, and our lowest positive reply rate was 18%.
And I'm just going to put a link in the chat to see about if your domain is healthy. It's free. You just need to put in your email, your website address, and it will tell you if your domain is working. There you go. Put it in the chat. It's free.
I'm going to open that as well.
There you go.
Cool.
So another question that Ryan just wanted clarification with: is this covering inbound and outbound activity, or are you all bound?
Yes, it covers both because we're an all-bound team. On the dashboards within Salesforce, every activity gets, we've got an attribution type field that we've created a formula for using some of the Salesforce code. And what we've done is we've basically bucketed it into inbound, customer, and new business. And then we look at the outbound and inbound activities as part of those. So we have a color-coded system, and I can see how much outbound activity you're doing versus how much inbound activity that you're doing.
More questions. Sorry, that this is brilliant. Are you factoring in data from LinkedIn outreach?
I don't it's just for the fact that it's the same reason I don't factor in talk time. And that was one of the things from the post that a lot of people said I need to factor in. Look, I was a BDR for 2 years. Trust me, I know how to fake talk time really easily. Like, it's one of the easiest things to go and fake. And I know, like, you hate to say it, like, oh, I'm not building a team that doesn't fake data. There's people that know how to go and fake data. Like, I know which numbers to call where I'm going to get a no answer and look like I've done 150 dials a day. Like, talk time for me, I can see people staying on voicemail for longer. And it's a lot easier to combat within the recorded countries, but it's the same for LinkedIn. The complete button in the sequence when it says, have you done the LinkedIn task? And you just click complete. It's the most skipped part of any sequence of any kind of, well, what have they got now? Something like 8 different things that you can do. It's probably the most skipped. And I can tell that by just looking at the connections that my reps have and their follower or connections number not increasing on a weekly basis, that they haven't completed those tasks correctly.
So Jake, now that you've said this about fake dialing, how do you understand if dials are legit or not?
Easy in the recorded countries because I can go and listen to them. In EMEA, it's a lot more challenging. But if we think about the scorecard, if we were, let's say, this person here was getting 0 meaningful conversations, but getting a load of answers, or these numbers were low, or we could have a rep, let's say, which was like 300 calls and 2 pickups, like here, that's really worrying, and we dig into that. And then I think that's a perfect time to do I do a lot of workflow exercise. I'll be like, hey, let's do an hour of prospecting together. Again, I run a remote team. So that kind of watch over the shoulder coaching, we have to do a lot to see if they're even doing the real stuff.
Brilliant. We're at the bottom of the hour at time. So thank you very much, everybody, for the interactivity and all the questions that you've been sharing. Are you able to, do you think you'll be able to get the scorecard, like a copy of it over?
Yeah, I'm trying to create something that I can share with people so it's actually helpful. And you can then download and use rather than just copy and pasting all of my text. But I've just been logged out of LinkedIn, but feel free to connect with me. And if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them over LinkedIn if I wasn't able to get to them today. But yes, I should hopefully, David, have something for you that is downloadable so people can use that if it is appropriate for your business.
Nice one. Thanks ever so much.
Cool. Thanks, team. Really